So this is an IG live that I did with Jiaming of Kun Health. It was so fun to talk to her about gut health and how it relates to your intuition. She has a wealth of knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine and is a second generation traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. And we just had so much to talk about. And I think that if you have digestion issues, if you've been having difficulty connecting with your intuition, Jiaming has some really, really wonderful insights. And we also shared some practical actions and steps that you can take without spending any money. Because I know, like, when you hear about something new, let's say a new issue or a solution, almost always it's like, okay, you have to spend money. And yes, you can book a session with her. You can investigate, explore traditional Chinese medicine, but I felt like it was very important to share a couple of things that you can do now, so there isn't that friction or that barrier to feeling more connected with your intuition. So I hope you enjoy this and stay tuned to future lives episodes with Jiaming of Kun Health.
Hello, everyone. Okay, thanks for everyone for joining. I'm Jiaming. I'm the founder of Kun Health. I'm a second generation Chinese medicine practitioner in training, and I'm also a longevity economist. So I spent the past decade or so traveling around the world being an economist, but I gotta say it's not as fun as being a Chinese medicine person. So off to you, Alice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alice Hu. I'm a career astrologer. I help you understand the power of astrology in business and figuring out the next steps in your career. And I haven't always done this before. I worked in corporate in digital marketing and also had an e-commerce company. And just like Jiaming, we found a lot more fulfillment, a lot more happiness in the work that we do now. It is quite different than I know what was expected of me, but you're second generation. And it was something I remember you telling me it was something that you had felt reluctance towards, right? Like you were like, no, like I want to be an economist. And like you are actually the type of work that you focus on is very specific, and not a lot of people can speak about it, especially women and women of color, Asian women, correct?
Right. Yeah. So actually, I'm an economist, but don't ask me about the stock market. I'm an economist that focuses on health data and especially for longevity. So it's for a specific group, like, above from 50 to 70 years old. So it's actually very similar in so many ways to Chinese medicine because, we're in the business of helping people live for as long as possible and also do what you like for as long as possible. So I don't really see a huge difference. But yeah, I was very reluctant to join the family business and retrain for 4 years. My dad was delighted because I'm an only child, and he's like, finally, someone will take my wisdom. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I founded Kun, and the rest is history because I want to do Chinese medicine my way. But I know you spent a long time, didn't you spend a long time in Asia? And you were working on like World Expo. That's incredible.
Yeah, so I started my career actually in Shanghai. My family is originally from Shanghai, so I speak the dialect. I also speak Mandarin Chinese. And I just kind of found my way over there. I thought it was going to be like a nice adventure before I started like work. But then I ended up just staying there for like 5.5, like 6 years working in digital marketing. It was kind of like the rise of social media in China. And I promised myself that I would stay there for as long as it served me, as long as it was fun and fulfilling and allowing me to grow. And then, I just felt like at around 5.5, 6 years, it was time to make a change. It was actually my intuition that sparked this. I knew that something like kind of wasn't right. And, I already took a different career path in terms of working in public relations, social media, but I then felt a pull in my like mid 20s, which is at the start of your Saturn return. I was just like, I'm not sure if this is what I want to be doing. And it was very disruptive to my identity because so many of us identify career with who we are, right? That is not the healthiest thing, but it's not uncommon. And so when you get laid off or you want to make a change in your career, it can feel very earth shattering. But my intuition had been getting louder and it really pushed me to kind of be very reflective and intentional about the life that I wanted to live and how I wanted to spend my 9 to 5. And so I really feel like my intuition kind of like antennas started to pick up in like my mid to late 20s, which is when your Saturn return happens, which is an existential crisis that we all go through. I feel like we talked about this and you definitely went through a big change during that time as well. And it happens again in your mid to late 50s and mid to late 80s. So you can attribute like that quarter life crisis, midlife crisis to this astrological milestone. And I remember when I started to explore these things, when I started this business 4 years ago, it was hard for me to understand intuition.
Mm.
It's a nebulous concept that people, it's hard to explain to people, but it's really that innate knowing, like that inner voice that guides you. And so I would love to know how you define intuition.
Mm. It's funny because I studied philosophy in college.
Mm.
So it was the first time when we studied French philosophy and they brought it up as if it were an outstanding standing concept that is essentially about the mind and body connect. Like better the mind is part of the body. And I was like, what are you talking about? I know this. I grew up in Chinese, in a Chinese medicine clinic. Like, of course the mind is part of the body. Like we've known that for 3,000 years. But apparently it's more new, right? In the Western kind of societies that we live in. My understanding of intuition, other than the mental part, which is basically, like you said, is an innate understanding of it, know something immediately, it also goes deeper. Intuition to me in Chinese medicine, in a Chinese medicine concept, is really about knowing your body. You know that something is off. You're able to have the ability to focus on a task and finish it. You are able to notify yourself whenever you have a little ailment going on in your life. So people who suffer from anxiety, brain fog, who also have chronic fatigue, among other things, do not necessarily have the intuition anymore because they're not. Intuition is really like the cream of the top, so to speak, right? When it comes to our body and mind connect. If your health is not there, you're not going to have the intuition. So it's really interesting, like you said, about a Saturn return and also existential crisis. People who usually are lacking in the intuition department, in my kind of, seeing private clients and in that department, usually have the following symptoms. One is they're very torn about their decisions. They feel they're overwhelmed by options, but really they feel they have no options. They feel that they are unable to make a change, a positive change in their life. And most importantly, they start having digestive issues. They start having brain fogs. They wake up, they're like, I have no appetite. And they truly, physically and mentally feel stuck in their life. So,
yeah. I mean, intuition is something that is always there to guide you. But if you are experiencing anxiety, but also not really feeling confident in yourself, and I've definitely felt these things as well, it's hard to trust yourself and to really listen to yourself. And I remember those moments, they can become clearer and clearer over time because it is something that you can develop. And as you kind of improve like your own physical health, mental health, it gets clearer and clearer. It doesn't mean you won't hear it, but it might just be a little fuzzy, right? It's kind of like I said, the antenna. You're picking up the signal. Sometimes it's clear. Sometimes it's not clear. Sometimes it gets jumbled up. And for myself, starting this business, becoming an intuitive, bridging career and astrology together, making my career astrology website, Your Saturn, these were all things my intuition told me that really didn't make any sense in the moment.
Yeah.
But I was like, it just kept on coming up. And I know now that if you don't listen to your intuition, the universe will then come in and kind of push you. And a lot of that comes from ailments. Like, like people will have like a big sickness, and that does happen around Saturn return or other pivotal moments. And then you'll see like, like a very common story for people. They're like, I got into a car accident, or I had this like really serious ailment. And that's how it shifted my trajectory and my life and my focus. And we don't want to get to that point, right? We don't want to get to that very serious ailment. We want to start understanding what our intuition, what is our body, what is our mind, that connection telling us. And so I want to kind of shift to, how does that relate to your gut health? Now, just in recent years, we've really focused on gut health. And it's so much more than kind of like what we're talking about now. It's really just scratching the surface. There's so many supplements out there right now. It's becoming very big in the wellness industry. But I would love for you to break it down in terms of, why is gut health important, and what are we doing, a lot of things, that is preventing us from helping a very healthy biome?
Oh God, that's a really long question. So it's a very important question. I was actually honestly very mad when this whole gut health trend started, flying. I was like, how dare you? We've known it for 3,000 years. Well, that was also around the time when I'm like, well, if I'm not happy about it, I should just start training and become a practitioner myself, right? Rather than like standing in another industry. So gut health, which in Chinese medicine, we talk about spleen, right? It's not the same as the Western medicine sense of spleen. So spleen in Chinese medicine is more like a broader concept of your digestive system, right? So it's not about, it is about what happens after you eat food. Now, why is this relevant to intuition? So in Chinese medicine, each organ or meridian is connected to a specific emotion. So spleen, which actually in 5-element theory is earth, right? So earth is where you get nourished, is basically the base, which is the reason why if you have issue with the spleen, is usually a root cause of many health issues in Chinese medicine. The spleen is connected to the emotion called overthinking. So it's overthinking and also like over worry, which is the reason why if you think about postpartum mothers or people who have existential crisis in their late 20s, they usually have some sort of digestive symptoms, because this is really spleen, and AKA, the spleen is really what grounds us. It's like soil, it grounds us. If your spleen chi is not abandoned, right? It's not flowing the right way. You're deficient. It could mean that you're chronically fatigued. You feel brain fog. Your period is just never ending. You're bleeding excessively. A bunch of symptoms. But all that also means in terms of emotion is that you're constantly worrying. So this means that it basically the emotion feeds back into the physical, and the physical feeds back into the emotion. Now, why is this relevant to intuition? Whenever we have a saying, I believe in English, it says, my gut feels it, right? Like I feel it in my gut.
Yeah.
The reason why you say that, if you think about it, if your gut is not healthy, you're not going to feel anything. Does that make sense? Like if your gut is not healthy, if our life is basically plants of flowers growing on top of soil. If your soil is too dry, if your soil is not nourishing enough, if your soil is sad, nothing is going to grow on top of that. And because of that, then your body and your mind will start having a disconnect. You're going to feel more anxious. You're going to feel like, I'm being overpowered by my emotions, but I don't know what to do about it. And therefore, you will not have intuition, because intuition is a high calling. Only when you're physically and mentally healthy can you really have this, I feel it in my gut feeling, which is the reason whenever, we do At Kun Health, basically, we painstakingly do 1 hour initial assessment every single time with every single person. And I will always ask a lot about digestion. The reason is because it's a root cause. Whenever people come and they say, I have chronic fatigue, I have anxiety, I have brain fog. To you, they're completely separate symptoms. To me, they might come from the same root cause, which is why this is my long-winded version of answering your question.
Thank you. And I know that there's a lot of immunity in the gut as well. You know, if you are getting sick a lot, you have a lot of chronic issues, you know, maybe autoimmune disorders as well. It can really be related to the gut, correct?
That is very correct. And actually, one lesser known fact is that I always ask people how many times you have gotten COVID, and that are some of the new symptoms you've had only start from after COVID. And many of them are actually digestion related. A lot of people feel, oh, I start developing this anxiety or brain fog after COVID. You will have no intuition whatsoever after COVID because that's actually part of long COVID symptoms. Another long COVID symptom is weight gain. So usually people who have no intuition, or they feel, I used to be so sharp, I used to remember things really well, now I don't. Think about when you got COVID and whether there is a weight gain associated to it, usually is related. So that is a digestion thing in Chinese medicine, which is why long COVID is actually one of my favorite things to do. That makes me sounding really nerdy, but there you go.
Okay, so we have a question here. Does bad gut health affect mental health, or mental health affect gut health? It's kind of like a chicken egg. Like, what comes first? I think it's quite nuanced, right? Because, you know, it's chemicals in the mind that gets released throughout the body. There's like the things that we eat, you know, like it seems like it's so complex because it's all related, honestly.
Yeah, you're totally right. You know, it's Chinese medicine is, you know, we all understand yin and yang, but yin and yang is a constant evolving mechanism, which means the yin can turn into the yang can turn into the yin, right? I think when we first met, Alice, we were talking about how I'm obsessed with I Ching, aka the Book of Changes, which is almost the foundation of Chinese medicine, Chinese culture, and Chinese astrology. And, you know, when we talk about the mental and physical, it is very possible, you know, I give you a very quick example, because you overwork your digestion and because of the stress, your digestion suffer, right, in return, and therefore you have less intuition. It could also be the other way around. Because you somehow have, you know, bad digestion, you start developing brain fog, you start developing, you know, this low immunity, you start developing like chronic fatigue. So it really goes vice versa, which is the reason why chronic conditions is something we love working with the most, because when you have a chronic condition, it's back and forth. This is why like it's fascinating for me to work on, but it's not a very easy thing for people to, you know, for people just to heal without intervention.
Oh yeah, of course. And so, you know, we're sharing a lot of information around gut health, around traditional Chinese medicine, around intuition. And I know that it can feel a bit overwhelming to some people. They're like, oh, like I have been feeling these symptoms, but there's so much going on in my life. And maybe some people feel like they may not have like the time, the financial resources to really invest. So are there a couple things, maybe like 1 to 3 things that people can do right now to kind of start to get in tune with what their gut needs, to make some small steps? Because I think one of the things I hate is I love like amassing new information and learning like, oh, I can be healthier in this way. But then inevitably I'm like, oh, this is like another thing I need to spend time, energy, and resources. It's not that it's not a priority, but it's kind of like, what are the small steps I can take as all the other priorities I have in my life, all the other things I have to focus. So what do you have to say to really help people?
I saw that Emily also asked the question, top 3 things. Yeah, you got me. I'm all about the top 3 things. So top 3 advice, and Alice is going to love this because we're both Asian. 1, stop drinking iced water. I know this, I understand for people in North America is somehow really difficult because many people are raised to just drink iced water. Like there are so many of my private clients who are just like, I can't stop drinking ice water. You can, and you will. I mean, honestly, if some of my super young teenage clients could do this, you can do this. I'm talking about extra ice in the water. Now, if you can drink water in room temperature, because cold really does a number on bloating. It really does, you're a model citizen, really does a number on your digestive system. So that's the best free advice. Cut your iced water, especially when it's iced boba tea, iced matcha. God, you guys all know I have a lot to say about matcha. Don't drink matcha. If you must drink it, definitely drink it hot. Don't drink it cold. That's number one. Number two, do not eat raw leafy greens. I think many of my practitioners, I saw you, Alice, many of my friends in the Ayurveda practice would agree with me.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You think about Indian food or Sri Lankan food, there are very few times when people eat things raw, especially leafy greens. The reason really for that is that in Chinese medicine, we give a temperature and pace to each vegetable and living things. So most leafy greens are bitter, cool, or cold. So I'm talking about some of like our hipster favorites here. Kale, right? Like dandelion. Oh God, dandelion. Do not eat these raw and just as it is. Especially if you have digestive issues, because they are draining. So if you start having diarrhea or bloating immediately after having these kale and your leafy greens, that's the reason. You can have it, but the point is to poach it or quickly stir fry it. That's the safest way. Number three, free advice. Number three, free advice for your gut health, I would say is really also free. We live in California. I'm sorry for people from the East Coast, but love you guys. Your guys awesome. Spend at least 30 minutes front and back sunbathing. And I want to explain this. I am not talking about you changing into bikini and then just run to the beach, okay? I am more talking about Asian auntie style. If you haven't seen them in H Mart, right? Like if you are going to be by the beach or by the ocean, definitely cover your head and also your neck, because you could get sick, and get that sun flowing, because yang qi is really beneficial. It's nature's gift. It will really help you with your digestion. It will really help you just get healthier in general. So I'm a huge fan of people spending more time outdoors rather than going to the gym.
Yes.
I think because we believe that humans are a small universe and the big universe is the nature. Nature is your mother. So your qi, as a human, your qi, whenever it's in the mother nature, will be in alignment with mother nature. So you will really benefit from nature, aka sun, in that sense. So that's that.
Okay, so to summarize, 1, do not drink cold water, no cold beverages. 2, no leafy vegetables, raw leafy vegetables. Try to cook them as much as possible. And then 3, spend time outdoors.
Yeah.
Free tips. Okay, so then I also have some tips as well to help you kind of, as you're figuring out like your gut health. These are 3 things that have really helped me focus in my intuition. 1, start to listen to what intuition like feels like, how it manifests in your body and in the mind. Your intuition is quite calm. It'll come and go. So making time at the end of the day for quiet, right? Spending time in nature is very helpful, because your intuition will never sound anxious or repeat. That's your anxiety. So it comes and goes. Sometimes you'll miss it because it's like for me, it was like, I was in meditation and it was like, move to California. And I was like, man, this is not the time. I just got a dog. It's COVID. It's expensive. Wait, I got to drive. I'm like, this is not a safe time. But I was like, I hear you. If you want me to go, I will work with you. Let's make it happen, So getting quiet so that you can hear your intuition and how it resonates in your body. It could be a deep knowing. It's one of the senses, right? You could hear it, you could smell it, taste it, feel it, just know, like it's through one of the senses. 2, you can set an intention before bed for like something that you really need an answer to. I like to write in a journal. It could be a sticky note and put it under my pillow. And that answer will kind of come sometime like the next day when you're awake. Doesn't necessarily mean like when you wake up. And 3, I agree with Jiaming and to say that to spend time outside. Really, to even have plants like in your home. I have a lot of plants that I tend to and like herbs because it's very, very grounding. So 1, make time for quiet so that you can understand how your intuition speaks to you through you. 2, you can write a note, a question that you have, something that you want your intuition to kind of come through for before bed. So your intuition communicates like while you sleep. A lot of people who are psychic and aren't able to harness it, they don't sleep very well because they get a lot of messages that come through right before bed or like in the night, like psychic messages, spirits will talk to you, spirit guides, like ancestors. And then 3, spending time outside.
That's all wonderful advice. And my last thing, if I'm allowed to squeeze in one, I think Alice might agree with me, is the Taoist philosophy of Wu Wei, which is to do nothing productive. And I want to confirm with people, this does not, going to the gym does not count as Wu Wei. I am more talking about trashy TV watching, fiction reading, like, bike riding to nowhere in particular. Give yourself the grace and the time to let your mind rest. And that's very important because if your mind does not rest, it goes into overdrive. That's when it starts to hurt the digestion and also vice versa. So you really want to give yourself grace and say, I've done enough for today and this is it. I'm going to be done and I will allow myself the time to rest. So, yeah.
Rest is productive. I think it's very hard for many of us to accept it, to embrace it, to embody it. I know, especially from Asian culture, it's, oh my God, so many words come up. It's like all the words that come up when I was younger, my mom's like, you just have to work harder, like 辛苦, like that's normal just to it's like, I'm like thinking right now, I'm like some of these words, like I don't even have like really like English translations, just like work hard. Like this is like almost like a suffering or 吃苦, to suffer. It's like it's like normal or like 抓紧时间, like take a hold of time, like make the most out of your time. But really it's kind of like the unlearning, the deprogramming and knowing that when you have more spaciousness in your life, things can come through, intuition comes through. And I see that Emily has a question about, so today is the super full moon in Pisces. It's happening around 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, depending where you are in the world. It could be happening, on the 31st, the next day, in the middle of the night or early morning. And full moons are powerful times for release, to celebrate your manifestations. And this is going to be all about Pisces energy. So healing. This is why I scheduled it. This conversation for this day, for healing, to have a stronger connection with your intuition, the start and finishing of creative projects, tapping into your creativity and artistry, and learning how to trust yourself. And I'm also curious because I actually don't know that much about traditional Chinese medicine. Something that in the coming years I want to learn more of, and how that can relate to Chinese astrology and learning that. But I know that full moons and the moons are very important to Chinese culture and traditional Chinese medicine. Could you speak a little bit more about that?
Well, only that I'm doing a early mooncake festival tea party tonight. Okay, so lunar calendar, Book of Changes is based on lunar calendar, as we all know, which is, I believe, some ancient culture like Persian culture also has some of that. Mm-hmm. It's a whole thing where its linkage to Chinese medicine is very powerful because it's really linked to different organs and the yin yang of each organ, right? So full moon in particular, actually, I don't know specifically because I need to look at the lunar calendar and check on the date specifically.
Oh, yes, would love to know.
But I think that, which is interesting because what we have in Chinese medicine, which is almost like a manifestation, right, is a version based on book of changes is what we call body constitution and 5-element theory. So that means that I'm going to release a free booklet. I know many of you have asked me. I am doing my job. I am releasing a free booklet on this, so you can all go there and check. Chinese medicine believe, there are 9 body constitutions. So when you do a consultation with me after in your personalized behavior plan, all of those advice are going to be based on your specific body constitution. And that body constitution is largely actually based on Book of Changes philosophy. Because, for example, we talk about Tai Yin, which is really like about the spleen, right? And Tai Yin means the extreme yin energy. So people who are of Tai Yin body type might find it, for example, difficult to lose weight. Like I heard from one of my clients who said, I'm like looking at food, I feel like I'm gaining weight. That's a particular body type. Whereas some other body type, there might be like a Jiaming body type. So like it's a little bit more complex than that. Like you will have people who just always nosebleed occasionally and they feel hot all the time. They feel like their gum is bleeding all the time. Be another body type. So it's really a long story, but I will release a booklet. I have heard you. I heard you Instagram. I will do it. So you will come.
Wonderful. So how can people connect with you and Kun Health?
Okay, first off, I really want to thank Alice, and I am going to book a session with her before the end of the year because I am a terrible friend. I haven't made the time for myself, but I'm going to do it. She's amazing. You guys got to go to her. And, really in this country and in this day and age, getting anything individualized or customized, getting a customized reading by her is such a gift. So I'm going to do it. You guys should all follow her and do it. You guys can follow me and follow Kun Health at KUN Health. And then I believe the booking link is just in the bio. So yeah. There.
Amazing. Thank you. I mean, you have such a wealth of knowledge. I think it's so beautiful when our experiences are anchored in like both worlds, right? In some ways, like maybe I'm not really, I don't know. It seems like it's like anchored in like yang and yin, like, like those worlds. And it's like the world that we live in now that is very practical. So the economist version of yourself, but one that is very ethereal, right? And one that knows that we are deeply connected and there aren't always the explanations to things. And by like bringing these together is such a beautiful thing. And I think the more knowledge we have around how the world operates through the traditional sense currently and kind of where we are going to, the more that we are able to kind of bridge the gap of understanding, of deeply connecting with ourselves, deeply connecting with our roots, especially if you're listening to this and you have Asian ancestry. This is about reclaiming power. This is about feeling more confident in your body and really listening to yourself, your desires, and really living your truth. And this is something that is a cycle that we already started, and it's kind of picking up pace.
Yeah, and if I may say something just to add to beautiful words Alice has already commented, I think many people actually ask us that why it takes us a lot of time to just focus on one particular private client, like why it has to be one client, one formula. I will describe this, I will talk about the yin and yang just very quickly. Yin and yang is not an absolute, right? It's not like 50% yin, 50% yang. That's why you have an ailment. That's why you're imbalanced. And it's also just not the yin and yang. There is also the outside of your health, how the outside universe impact you. So we talk about climate change, right? The climate is no longer so predictable. That does a huge number to many of our.
I mean, it's hotter. The earth is hotter, and that doesn't allow you to sleep well. You get dehydrated more. I mean, I feel it. I'm like, this is too much.
It's interesting because if I just talk about in a California context, California has been overburning, and it's in 5-element. California is the gold element. We have so much gold in the past history. It's the gold element. Gold is corresponding to the lung in Chinese medicine. It corresponds to the the lung corresponds to sorrow as an emotion. So what this means is California had a lot of people who got COVID. And if you have a lot of profound sadness, you sometimes find yourself gasping for air. You sometimes find yourself that, oh my God, now the season is changing. I feel my throat is dry. All of this is very complex, but also deeply fascinating. But going back to our original topic, you must have intuition, because that is the fundamental, aka gut health. That's the fundamental thing that's going to help you make the appropriate decision at the right time. And that's why I think, we're talking about root issues here.
I mean, there's just so much to talk about. We'll have to do another live next month, because just from our 30-minute conversation today, I feel like there's so many different areas that we can really dive in deeper. And yeah, everybody, please follow Kun Health. And if you want to connect with me, I'm at WOOWOOCO. You can get your free career astrology report at yoursaturn.com. And yes, you can also book a career astrology reading with me as well. It's one-on-one time for 45 minutes. I share amazing insights. You can ask me all the questions. We'd love to know the topics, the insights that you received from this live, what really caught your attention to help us shape the next one that we do.
That's great. And then I think I just saw a quick question here. I remember this. I will get to you. Just DM me if I missed any question. It's been a pleasure, Alice. Thank you for finding time.
Of course. Thank you. I loved this conversation, and I can't wait for our next one.